Stories like crazy, because everyone has mental health, and everyone has a story, and sometimes they're crazy. Join Lori Lane Murphy and me, Adriana Prosser, as we talk about dealing with, struggling with, and managing mental health with storytellers who want to share their true life story. Get in the conversation with us and talk to us on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe on SoundCloud and iTunes. Now, let's smash some stigma. This time we're talking to Dan Curtis Thompson, comedian, writer, actor, and we talk about the concept of masks. You know, when you have to put on a face that's not necessarily the authentic you, and it's this drain suck, it just sucks your energy out of you. In certain situations or for a certain person maybe in your life, you have to wear these masks. Anyway, let's talk to Dan about it.
Why do we find it necessary to use a mask or to look or act well? What we're trying to get out of this episode, we're looking for the idea of wearing a mask to fake wellness. And we want to know if you've ever done this. So we've invited our storyteller, Dan Curtis Thompson, here to share with us a little bit about wearing a mask. And not surprising, he uses comedy to manage his own story. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, how you doing?
Excellent.
Great. So we're talking about masks today. It's interesting. Masks, for me, I found I didn't know I was wearing a mask for so long. I think when you're raised wearing a mask, you don't think of it as a mask. You just think of it as part of your face. And I don't think I realized I was wearing a mask until recent years. I'm only 27, so I'm a geezer, right? But it took me a quarter of a century to figure out that there's something on there. I feel like it started. I can now pinpoint it back to when I was in grade 8, so that's 13 years old, and that was when I became the class clown. I learned around that age that if I were to make the bullies laugh that day, I did not get beaten up, and that was a nice survival technique. So I'm not saying the jokes were good. I'm just saying it was mostly me harassing the teacher and making the kids laugh at my malice, which saved me from theirs. So as years went on, I learned that the more I made people laugh and the more I made people smile, the more I could get out of that. I either protection or friendship or feeling of belonging, which I never really felt I had. This has followed me all the way to, I'm doing stand-up comedy. So I'm professionally a class clown. That's okay. It's okay. I think jokes have saved my life. Absolutely, because about 2 years ago, I was dating around, getting into romantic relationships, and I found that I was never a good partner, and I didn't know what I was doing wrong. And I've now, with hindsight's always 50-50. No, 20-20. 50-50 is terrible vision. With hindsight, I don't know what happened. With hindsight, looking back on it, I can realize that it was because I was wearing this mask. I wasn't able to be myself ever with these people, and any times I wanted to be myself, it was taking off that mask, and that felt foreign to me. So I lashed out. I would take my feelings out on people, or I would use jokes in a malicious way. For me, I think wearing that mask and feelings of depression are a bit of a learned thing from my father. Now, I don't want to say he's depressed. He's never been diagnosed, but he never sought help. And I think that's why I never did, because I thought of it as normal. This is just the way life is. You're sad, and then you die one day. I thought that was just the way things go. But then when I was with someone who decided to kind of pick at that mask and start telling me, what's underneath that is pretty okay too. That's when I started trying to take it off a little bit. and it felt terrifying. I always felt like I was wearing a comedy mask over top of a tragedy mask, to be very dramatic here. But when I took off that comedy mask, I was expecting her to scream, like, it's terrifying, put that back on. But instead she said, hey, this is nice. And I was like, is this nice? Really, this? But I hate this. And she told me, you should try loving yourself. It's really wonderful. And I've never forgot that. I think that she helped me learn that I need to start taking what's underneath that mask that I wear every day more seriously. Instead of just the exterior, let's focus on the interior as well. And so I started going to therapy at her suggestion. And you can only start really going to therapy and trying to get better when it's right for you. No one can be like, it's time now, you go, and then you get better. You have to realize it when you realize it. And it just so happened to be when she suggested it for me. And since then, I think it's going to be a lifelong struggle. I think, but I think that's okay. I think that's kind of exciting, because that means I get to fall in love more and more every day, and that's a nice thing, right? Yeah. For those who are listening, Lori just put her hand to her heart.
Wow.
I think you can agree. That is a lovely thing.
Wow, Dan. Thank you. I think that's just a lovely way to look at it. I'm going to take that away, Adri. The learning to fall in love, or getting to fall in love every single day.
Yeah, that's a privilege, I think.
It is a privilege.
And some days it's hard. Just like any relationship, it's hard. But
I like that. I like that a lot.
I do. I think we're going to steal it. And
yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah.
And we're going to maybe put it out as our tagline: fall in love with yourself every day.
Yeah, that's I want some compensation, but
No.
No, okay.
No. This is for the good of mankind.
Okay, I'm terrible at negotiating, so okay.
Okay. But what do you think, Adri? What's your takeaway?
I mean, that one's a beautiful takeaway. But I also completely agree that therapy is always a good choice. Mm-hmm. It's like the apple a day.
Everyone in the world should be in therapy.
It's an apple a day kind of thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But you can't lead a horse to water.
No.
Right?
Exactly.
Because I have definitely come out of therapy being like, why isn't everybody doing this?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's mind-blowing how wonderful it is. It's just like me going up to people and being like, why don't you eat sushi? It's ambrosia. And people look at me like, why would I want dead raw fish? And it's kind of like me talking up therapy, that until you try it, nobody really has an appetite for it. But as soon as you try sushi, you will fall in love with it.
You know
now
what?
We've gone back to
you
sushi.
try.
You know what?
It always comes back. It always comes back.
But that's a damn fine point. I used to hate sushi before I tried it.
Right? And same with therapy.
Which is, I think,
another tagline: therapy, like sushi, just try it.
Sushi for your mind.
Yeah.
Sushi for your mind. Wow.
All you can eat emotions? No, that doesn't.
But
really
you know,
work.
it takes us to another point though around. So here's therapy as this tool that so many people embrace and benefit from. And I think in future casts, we need to start exploring not just therapy, but what are some of the other tools that people have used and have worked. Mm-hmm. I know people that have been successful in managing their symptoms by doing things that are a little more inward, a little more spiritual.
Sure.
Yeah, meditation, yoga,
what they eat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
All of those sorts of things. And I think what's great about having these conversations is that we're creating a toolbox for people. Mm-hmm. And it's not about jamming a square peg into a round hole. It's saying, here's a plethora of choice, or a menu,
mm-hmm.
sushi.
Yeah.
A menu, things that are available to people that weren't available before.
Yeah, it's about finding the right hole for that right peg.
That's right. And I think we're in an actually very, I'd like to say, positive time for mental illness.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot more.
Well, we're talking about it, finally.
That's what we're doing. Yeah. Stories like crazy.
Stories like crazy. So Dan, now that people have fallen in love with you, how can they find you?
Well, they can find me. I perform all over the city doing stand-up comedy. You can find me on Twitter at Dan_Tomps. And there's a P and an S there.
Wow.
Yeah, Tomps. Or you can find me at my show that I run at Comedy Bar at Ossington and Bloor, first Thursday of every month, called Character Comedy, which is stand-up comedy performed in character as whatever the theme is that month. Maybe we're going to be animals. Maybe we're going to be diseases. Maybe we're going to be colors. You don't know, but it's always worth it.
Cool. All right. We'll check that out.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you want to join the conversation, and we hope you do, come find us on Twitter and Facebook. And you can subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. That's it, Stigma Fighters. And remember, your story isn't over yet, and we want to hear it.